July 5, 1943. Kursk. A Ferdinand tank destroyer, 65 tons of Krupp steel, the pride of Porsche's engineering, lurches forward across a Soviet minefield. Its crew isn't worried. No Allied gun in existence can penetrate its 200mm front plate. Then a blast hits them like a freight train. Not from the front. Not from some miracle weapon. From a converted artillery piece bolted onto a KV chassis by engineers working under impossible deadlines. The shell doesn't need to penetrate the armor. It rips the Ferdinand's transmission housing clean off the hull. The crew bails out into a minefield. This is the Su-152. The Soviets called it Zveroboy, the beast killer. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't precise, it didn't need to be. Because when you're throwing a 48-kilogram shell at the speed of sound, precision is optional. If you're interested in how wars are actually decided by logistics, math, weapons, and doctrine, subscribe now, turn on notifications, and stay tuned for more in-depth World War II analysis. Let's continue. But to understand why the Soviets built something this crude, you have to understand what was coming at them. By early 1943, German armored doctrine was shifting from medium tanks to heavy. The Tiger I was already in service on the Eastern Front. The Panther and the Ferdinand were weeks from deployment. The Tiger carried an 88mm KWK-36 gun and 100mm of frontal armor sloped at roughly 10 degrees, weighing in at 57 tons. It could engage and destroy any Soviet tank at 2,000 meters. The Ferdinand was even worse. 200mm of frontal casemate armor, designed as a dedicated tank killer, virtually impervious to every Soviet anti-tank gun in inventory. Berlin called them decisive weapons. Kursk would be the proving ground. And the cost told you everything about Germany's gamble. One Tiger, one required roughly 300,000 man-hours and 800,000 Reichsmarks. Germany produced just 1,347 total, across the entire war. Here's the number that mattered to Soviet tank crews. The Tiger's frontal armor sat at 100mm. The standard Soviet 76mm F-34 tank gun could penetrate about 75mm at 500 meters. The math was simple. The most common Soviet tank gun literally could not kill the Tiger from the front at combat range. On paper, the Tiger was unkillable. The Soviets didn't have a single tank gun that could answer it. So they stopped thinking about tank guns. Winter, 1942-43. The first Tiger encounters came near Leningrad. The Schwerpanzerabteilung 502 deployed a small number of Tigers, likely a dozen or so operational at any given time. But even this handful created a crisis. Soviet 76mm rounds bounced off at standard engagement ranges. After-action reports caused alarm all the way up the chain of command. A Tiger captured near Leningrad in January 1943 was shipped to the Kubinka proving ground for testing. Soviet engineers fired every available gun at it. The 76mm failed completely. The 45mm was useless. Even the 85mm anti-aircraft gun produced only marginal penetration at close range, unreliable under real combat conditions. The 122mm A-19 core gun could punch through, but it weighed over 7 tons in transport configuration. Impossible to mount on any existing tank chassis without a complete redesign. Then came Stalin's direct order. You'd find a weapon that kills heavy tanks. Now. Not in a year. Not in 6 months. Now. The question facing Soviet designers was brutally simple. How do you kill something your entire anti-tank arsenal can't penetrate? And the answer was just as brutal. Stop trying to penetrate it. Hit it so hard the penetration doesn't matter. The designers at Chelyabinsk were given an impossible timeline. What they built broke every rule of armored vehicle design. That was the point. Joseph Kotin's design bureau at the Chelyabinsk Kirov plant took the concept to its logical extreme. The idea was straightforward. Take the ML-20, a 152mm gun howitzer. a corps-level artillery piece originally designed in 1937 to destroy fortifications, and mounted on the KV-1S heavy tank chassis. That's it. That's the entire design philosophy. What was prioritized? In speed of deployment, firepower above all else, use of existing components only. No new parts, no new tooling. What was sacrificed? Everything else. No turret, just a fixed armored casemate with a limited traverse of 12 degrees total. Only 20 rounds of ammunition. A crew of 5 crammed into a brutally tight fighting compartment. Reload time with the 2-piece ammunition, roughly 40 seconds under combat conditions. The numbers tell the story. The ML-20's 152mm shell weighed 48.78 kilograms and left the muzzle at 600 meters per second. The kinetic energy alone could crack welds and blow off external components even without penetrating the armor. The BR-540 armor-piercing round penetrated around 124 millimeters at 1,000 meters according to Soviet test data, enough for the Tiger's front plate. But the real killer was the OF-540 high-explosive fragmentation round, packed with approximately 6 kilograms of TNT filler. It didn't penetrate the Tiger, it concussed it, cracking welds, jamming turrets, killing crew through spalling and overpressure transmitted through the steel. For comparison, the Tiger's 88mm shell weighed 10.2 kilograms. The Su-152's shell outweighed it nearly 5-to-1. The production math was just as important. The prototype, designated Object 236, was built and tested through late 1942 into early February 1943. State Defense Committee acceptance came on February 14, 1943. And by July, just in time for Kursk, around 670 units had rolled off the assembly lines. One Su-152 required a fraction of the man-hours of a Tiger, because the hull and the gun already existed. It was ugly, it was slow to reload, or it had the tactical flexibility of a barn, and it was about to meet the Tiger at the biggest tank battle in history. Operation Citadel. July 5, 1943. The Wehrmacht committed its new heavy armor, around 150 Tigers and 89 Ferdinands. Su-152 regiments were deployed specifically as heavy armor hunters, assigned to sectors where Tiger and Ferdinand concentrations were expected. The first dedicated Su-152 regiments had been formed just 2 months earlier, in May 1943, specifically for this role. The results at Kursk are where the Zveroboy nickname was earned. Soviet crews reported kills against Tigers, Ferdinands, and Panthers in the first days of fighting. German after-action reports noted a new heavy assault gun causing unexpected losses. Crews described vehicles hit by Su-152 rounds with turrets jammed, tracks destroyed, and hulls cracked open from concussive force. The 1,529th Self-Propelled Artillery Regiment was credited in Soviet records with destroying 12 Tigers and 7 Ferdinands in the first week at Kursk. Those numbers are almost certainly inflated. Soviet kill claims routinely were. And many Ferdinand losses at Kursk came from mines and mechanical failure, not direct fire. But the psychological impact was real and documented on both sides. Think about the irony. The Ferdinand, Porsche's masterwork, 200 millimeters of frontal armor, unkillable by any tank gun in the Allied inventory, was being mission-killed by what was essentially a field howitzer bolted onto tank tracks. Kursk proved the concept. But what happened next proved something more important. The Soviets didn't need the Su-152 to be the best. They needed it to be enough. After Kursk, a Su-152 production continued through late 1943, with a total of around 670 units built. But here's where the math gets devastating. The Su-152 evolved. By late 1943, it was replaced on the production line by the ISU-152, same ML-20S gun, but mounted on the new IS tank chassis with better armor at 90 mm on the frontal plate and a more reliable drivetrain. The ISU-152 inherited the Zveroboy name and the mission. First production units came off the line in November and December of 1943. By war's end, approximately 2,825 ISU-152s had been built. Combined total, roughly 3,500 beast killers produced. Now put that against Germany's numbers. Total Tiger, one production across the entire war, 1,347. Total Ferdinand and Elephant, 91. Total Panthers, around 6,000, but plagued by mechanical failures with combat readiness rates sometimes dropping below 40%. Operation Bagration, June 1944. ISU-152. Regiments were assigned to breakthrough sectors, used not just as tank killers but as bunker busters. The 152 mm round was devastating against fortified positions. The Wehrmacht's Army Group Center was annihilated. 28 divisions destroyed in 5 weeks. Berlin, April 1945. ISU-152S were used as direct-fire siege guns. Point-blank shots into buildings. The weapon designed to kill Tigers finished the war, blasting holes through apartment blocks in the Reichstag district. After the war, German commanders would be asked what they feared most. Their answers would have surprised their own propaganda ministry. Here is the arithmetic of the Eastern Front. Germany built 1,347 Tigers, each one a masterpiece of engineering that could kill any tank on Earth at 2 kilometers. The Soviets answered with roughly 3,500 vehicles, mounting a gun designed in 1937 to destroy concrete bunkers. The Tiger needed a trained crew, a functioning transmission, a supply chain stretching back to the Ruhr, and fuel that Germany was running out of by 1944. The Su-152 needed a shell. German General Friedrich von Mellenthin, writing after the war and Panzer battles, acknowledged that Soviet self-propelled guns were highly effective and produced in quantities Germany could not hope to match. That's the epitaph for the wonder weapon doctrine. Not that it was wrong, but that it was irrelevant. The ISU-152 served in the Soviet Army until the early 1970s. Variants were exported across the Eastern Bloc. Egypt deployed ISU-152S during the 1967 Six-Day War. A weapon born from desperate improvisation outlived the empire it was built to destroy by decades. The Beast Killer wasn't the best gun of World War II. It was the most honest. A weapon that understood the only question that mattered wasn't, can we build something perfect? It was, can we build enough? If you enjoyed this story, hit subscribe for more World War II deep dives every week.